in Tucson 2012, day 8. This is the live broadcast. And so we were just in Virginia, and right now we're going to head back over to Dallas, Texas. And we've got Rob Levinsky from the Arkenstone on deck and ready to show us some fabulous new things that he's going to share with us, share with the world for the first time. So Rob, welcome to the show.
Thanks again. Peter, Lauren, hello. So I don't know how loud I have to talk, so if you can't hear me, speak up. Welcome to another part of my gallery. So we've got a big plan today. We're gonna look at 1,500 minerals in 40 minutes, okay? Starting now, in 4 parts. And I feel like I'm doing one of those shows where you have to diagram it. Anyway, 2 collections and 2 surprises that we'll give you a preview on. If you had gone to Tucson, we would have previewed this all there and not sold it there, because these are all things that have just come in. So instead, we're previewing all of this to people at home. So think of it as the excitement you would feel and see at the Tucson main show, thinking ahead for the spring and summer of the hobby. So we're going to start by going from Dallas to Burma. So I think many serious collectors maybe grew up on this book. I certainly did. The book Gem and Crystal Treasures by Peter Bancroft. And you know, there's this chapter about the magic of Burma and the rubies and the sapphires there. But what a lot of people don't realize is actually there's a lot of other stuff too. So I'm really pleased to announce this mess of flats actually is the personal lifetime collection of Bill Larson from his 40+ trips to Burma over almost 40 years. So come in here and we'll give you a quick look at some of the highlights. Because you never get to see this together. You never get to see these things in one place. And what's really interesting is it's a collection not of just Spinel, ruby, and sapphire. We have really cool things that you never knew existed from Burma, such as magnetite. Just fascinating things. You know, we all know aquamarines, but who cares? Look at painite. That's a giant painite, once considered the world's most expensive gem species. All kinds of goodies. You know, every flat we go through, there's new toys and treasures. And most of these are small because that's what came out. That's what got preserved by the miners. There aren't a lot of big things from Burma beyond quartz, perhaps. And Bill in particular liked small, beautiful treasures. Let's see, I'll take this out while you look at these. You can just sort of do a skim over these flats. And you see it's not just ruby, although rubies are nice. These are pseudo-octahedral rubies. You'd think they were Spinels, but apparently they're not. There's things like this, the finest apatites you've ever seen.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's like glass.
Someone's gonna need that for the theme next year.
Absolutely.
Wow. You could read through that apatite.
No kidding.
And so, you know, this is the thing, as we go through the flats.
You weren't kidding.
There's just, yeah,
No.
there's just, here's another one. These little gem crystals turn out to be just amazing. It's one of the finest crystals of silimonite, and that's terminated. Sharp, gemmy. But then we have things like this, zircon, which I thought was a cut and rough set when I first saw it. So I actually bought it thinking I had a gemstone over here. That's not a gemstone. That is a natural crystal with all those facets. So, you know, it's tiny, but it's one of my favorite things in the collection. And as you go through the collection, you'll see that a lot of the things that are interesting, you know, are not necessarily what you think of as coming from Burma, but this is what makes a real collection, you know, built over decades. Peter?
I love the color on that.
Peter,
they're fantastic.
you and I are down the same rabbit hole. You know, if we collect locality collections, for those who don't know, Peter collects Mexican minerals and I collect Chinese minerals. Sometimes you just have to buy things because of where they're from, but it's nice when the bonus is that it's really great.
Absolutely. That thing is crazy.
This is a ruby or is it a sapphire? It's got both colors. So there's 1,000 pieces in the collection. And of course, there's the common gem species. But there's all different kinds of ruby and sapphire. There's even trapeachy sapphires, which I didn't know existed. We'll show you, here's a whole box. It took them 30 years of trips to Burma to get these, of Star of David twins of Spinel, which is more than I've ever seen in my entire life combined.
There's some great color in there too. They're not just great twins.
Yeah, but here, come over here. So here, this is interesting. A quartz with a very strange termination. Don't know what's going on there.
Looks practically alpine.
Yeah. You know, all we see normally are floater spinels, but here's a floater spinel plus muscovite.
But not just muscovite, a beautiful transparent book of gem muscovite.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see, let's pull this out. And, you know, the problem is, I think I've sorted the collection and then I start going through a flat and I find something like this, which is perhaps the world's best or among the best synhalite crystals. You know, and you could cut a gem from it. So these are things, yeah, I won't, don't worry. These are things that were accumulated over 30 years. I think he said 30 plus years and almost 40 trips back and forth to the gem markets of Burma. You accumulate also in passing because it's, you just can't help yourself picking things up. You know, all kinds of cultural doodads. This is a faceted Buddha head that would have gone on a statue. All kinds of historic artifacts and beads. And then of course there's tourmalines of all the colors. We'll just come and do our 2-minute survey of tourmalines. Remember when these came out 20 years ago?
The
I love
mushrooms?
those mushrooms.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, wait. Oh, go ahead.
No real surprise that Bill stashed the best of the best for himself.
Well, only little ones, he would say. But you know, this is the mark of a real collector, right? It's not about size. It's not about filling the space. It's I mean, it's a real collection, and there's obviously more than he needed to keep in here. But he would say, well, that one's a little different than that one, so I needed to keep both. You know, that's logical.
Need has nothing to do with it.
Oh, yeah. So there's a number of flats of Spinels. So when we get to the need issue, maybe he didn't need to keep as many as these, but you know, now they're basically unavailable. Boxes of gem Spinel. So some of us affiliated with mining terms might recall these are often called sphincter stones because of how they might escape the mines. And look,
No laughing, Monica.
Look, an actual legal customs piece of paper. So it's all good. See what we have here. Beautiful, more beautiful tourmalines. Don't talk about Peter that way. He's happy. Anyway, just lots and lots of weird random stuff.
I mean, not just weird random stuff, but also some really exceptional specimens too. And those weird random things are exceptional. I mean, there's a reason Bill kept them, right? That he's seen a lot of the material and he kept what stood out.
Yeah, and well, and again, I think when you're collecting a location-based collection, and we'll show you another one in about 5 minutes, you know, I think that's part of what makes it actually important instead of just a pile of stuff. Is the fact that it shows the variety and the diversity of that country.
Well, and it all has a context. It all, I mean, most of these things that you're looking at are high-grade metamorphic minerals, so there's a geologic context. They come from the same country. That makes it bigger than the sum of the parts.
Yes, that's what I wanted to remember to say. Thank you for beating me to the punch on that. And that's true. It really is. It's more valuable scientifically and academically, but probably hopefully also monetarily, because it is bigger than the sum of the parts. And no one can do it again. You know, the time has passed. Nice matrix piece. And you can see there's a lot more we don't have time to go into, but if you watch the website for the next 3 years, you'll see it. Oh, these are interesting. Look, have you ever seen a columbite from Burma?
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just fun stuff, and we are very happy and proud to present that here. So at some point, this will be coming to the website. Oh, look, another flat of Spinels. So more Spinels.
How do you guys feel like we're doing on that promise of 1,500 specimens? Are we making our way there?
We're getting
We're
there.
getting there.
Here's a survey of Burmese topaz. Remember, most of these were, what, 10 to 20 years ago that they came out this good. Just beautiful things.
And the color's preserved too.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Right.
Yeah. All right, so we're on a time leash. We got to go look at more minerals, so follow me. We'll go somewhere else.
This is what Rob was up to. For those of you who were around last weekend, where I was giving him a hard time for the gallery being a disaster because there were flats all over the place, he had weird plans in mind. So here we go.
So master plan. So the second location collection we're going to show you in Premiere, and some of you may know him, is the Swiss mineral collection of Brent Lockhart. So Brent won the Desautel's a couple of years ago for his worldwide mineral collection. And his real passion all these years has nevertheless been to quietly, secretly collect Swiss minerals here in the United States. So this is part of the collection. It's been up in Colorado, and he's built it with help from his friends, from Strawlers and from a few dealers in Switzerland, and in small part to me and a few others domestically. So what we're going to do is show you here in America, probably, I would think, the largest collection of Swiss minerals, and you know, another example of how you build something, like Peter said, that's more than the sum of the parts. So one thing to point out here that's really interesting is the careful documentation, especially with the historical angle for Switzerland. Every one of these came out of a specific hole in the ground. Now, I don't know what that hole was. I'm American, I'm not close enough, but he's carefully researched all of the locations. Each cleft, each cavity, each glacier that these things come from is noted, as well as the years they came out. The oldest piece in the collection, which we'll see shortly, dates to the Simplon Railway Tunnel. So this is over 120 years old, and we'll see that piece. And again, what's nice is everything is well documented, labels, history, go with many of these pieces that we have not had time or space to give you. For example, this changed hands in 1924. So let's move on from the table. So in fine Tucson tradition, Peter, Lauren, where's the place of honor and respect if I buy something and want to show somebody privately?
The bathroom.
Exactly. So in homage to previous episodes of What Hot in Tucson, when I crowded into a small bathroom with Dave Wober and Brian Swoboda filming and a few other guys in the bathroom, and in honor of the Westward Look, we're not now, walk to my bathroom.
You always told me you loved being in the bathroom with Wilbur.
Yeah, well, special case. So this is the case of honor. So welcome to our bathroom. We got bored this summer and we wallpapered.
I don't know that I would say bored, but sure.
Yeah. So let's open this.
Awful fish.
So this to me is really, Brent, if you're watching, I mean this to be the spot of honor. Thank you for selling me your collection and trusting me with your babies. And well, I have to apologize to Brent up front. When I first looked at this collection, and Monica's going to give you a skim of the shelves now, what first caught my eye are all these incredible weird things like zircons and hematites in combination with other species, and beautiful fluorites. There's that pyrite. But then I realized how many quartzes there were, and I might possibly have whined a little bit to Brent. So Brent, I am apologizing on live camera for complaining about how many quartzes there are. now that I truly appreciate the majesty of Switzerland, and 50% of the collection needs to be quartz, right?
That adularia is
That
just.
adularia is
Yeah.
really pretty.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Actually, let me show you this one. I've loved this for 20 years in this collection. Look at that twin.
Wow.
It's gemmy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's those other species that really make the collection. I mean, the quartzes are good. I'm learning to like quartz more than I did last week, but those rarities are amazing. Look at this, how clear this is. This is a 4-inch gem crystal that you're seeing my hand through. This one has a great story. So look at this Gwindle. The Gwindle's about 7 inches, and I think you can see it twists. And it's perfect on matrix. So apparently this was in a major Russian collection in the 90s. It was purchased out of another old collection in the 80s. And because of the size, it was assumed to be Russian. Now, if you look at the little white adularia crystals, you can see it must be Swiss. So for 30 years, this was labeled as a Russian Gwindle from Dodo, but it's not.
Look at
Ridiculous.
the color of that smoky.
Yeah, total gem.
What
These
if
are interesting.
will have both the great quartzes as well as all these really interesting rarities.
Yeah,
So
like
you gotta,
that's a tourmaline. I never knew such a thing existed from Switzerland. This is interesting. So as Brent explained it to me, these are all from one pocket called the Schnitzel cleft. So I suppose that's what they ate for lunch while they were excavating. Apparently it's rather well known among Swiss strawlers. But if you look, we have a closed Gwindle on matrix with the razor sharp side edges, open Gwindle on matrix. This is a half Gwindle, right? So it's closed on one end and open on this end. 2 fully open Gwindles and this amazing thumbnail. I mean, it's crazy. A closed Gwindle. And all those different crystal forms came out of the same hole in the ground. I find that interesting. What else can we look at in the time we have left? Well, this is a famous piece, the pink fluorites. This one I remember first seeing in the 1990s when it was in Stuart Walensky's collection. And I believe the story. Oh, go ahead.
The color on that's just so fantastic, especially with that association. But that fluorite also behind in the corner, that's really pink.
Yeah, that's massively pink. So for scale, it's about 5 inches.
Wow.
And so, remember this collection was built over well over 30 years for the core of it. And he was waiting for things like that really stand out. Here's another special piece.
gorgeous accent.
Yeah, but from Switzerland. I never would have imagined. Honestly, if you handed this to me, I would have assumed it was Russian. But there's history. And these things, they come out, but mostly they're in private collections that people don't get to see.
So what's the chartreuse thing on the top shelf?
Yeah.
Chartreuse. Which color is that?
That's this. It's a siderite.
Really beautiful siderite from the Gotthard tunnel. Here's that wonderful pyrite that we were showing you before.
That's so aesthetic as well as historic. The provenance plus the way that that's composed.
Yeah. Well, and again, I love seeing location collections that have pieces that appeal to us even by worldwide standards.
Oh, but what you've got there is a combination of a locality collection and a species collection with all those quartzes.
Yeah. Here, let's focus on this Gwindle. This is shocking. This is a huge Gwindle, 6 inches across, on a matrix plate the size of a basketball. And for those of you who've seen our symposium videos, they're posted online. There's a video from 2018 where Dr. Andreas Stucki, Andy Stucki, he's the heir to the Sieber mineral business in Switzerland. He gives us some good videos showing these kinds of places. And when you see those videos and you think about a piece like this being hauled out, it's just, it's humbling. that they can be recovered.
And if anyone wants to try and check those out, they're at dallassymposium.org/videos, or just go to dallassymposium.org. There's a link at the top that will take you to the videos.
And I still maintain that that presentation by Andreas Stuckey is the best presentation I've ever heard on alpine minerals. It's fantastic.
It was really good. So, you know, let's talk about that in terms of this collection. How did a guy sitting in America, first he lived in Houston and then in Colorado, how did he build a collection like this of great Swiss minerals? Word of mouth among friends. I mean, I and other dealers sold him a small number of these pieces, but mostly he bought them direct from the strawlers and the people who were collecting them. Let's look at this. One of whom was Dr. Stuckey. So the Sieber and Sieber family is multi-generational. They were the kings of Swiss mineral collecting and dealing for, I mean, decades. And a lot of the Sieber and Sieber pieces and a lot of things they handled ended up here in this collection.
Sorry, guys, the focus is just not wanting to pick this up.
That's a ruby from Switzerland.
Wow.
Never,
Great pink too.
yeah,
Adorable.
never
Come
imagined.
on.
Did it go?
Nah.
No. Well,
Just don't get that anywhere near any of Bill's boxes. You'll never be able to find it again.
this again is one of my favorites, the zircon. And so the trick to building a location collection like this, or like what Peter and I do as well, is sometimes if someone offers you the right rock, you just have to buy it and admit that you're going to buy it before they tell you the price. And that way they'll show you the next rock. But you know, the result is you get special things. Let me show you this giant Gwindle. So for those who haven't seen a lot of them, these are Gwindles. And there's three I'll show you that have a particularly amazing twist. You see,
Jeez, that is amazing.
so it's so big it's hard to hold, but yeah, that has twist. It's not subtle. Okay. I'm not quite sure I can explain how Gwindles form. Peter, is there a 1-minute version?
No.
No. Okay.
Or there may be, but I don't know it.
Watch the Andreas Stuckey video.
Talk to
So
Andy
here's-
Fraser.
Here's a smoky Gwindle. Again, you see the dramatic twist in these. So I will apologize for the last time for making fun of people who collect too many quartzes. Quartz is a wonderful mineral. We should all buy 50 or 100 of them, especially right now. What else? Let's look at the amethyst. I would never have guessed this was a Swiss amethyst unless I saw it in this collection. So anyway, fascinating things. And I should say, it's, you know, I don't know enough about Swiss minerals. It's a learning experience for me. So I'm in this weird circumstance, and I think many dealers find themselves in the same circumstance sometimes, where we're looking at the collection of someone who's obviously far more knowledgeable than us about a niche area. So I find myself asking the person selling me this, okay, what's this worth? What is the context? You know, how does it fit in? He has to educate me, and I learn by handling the collection. But it's this context of seeing it all in one place that really helps all of us, and that helps them to market them later. Everyone can really see where things fit in. So again, Brent, thank you for educating me and letting me have this collection. It's an honor.
Really looking forward to learning more about this material too, with you guys, you know, posting what you have online, and being able to hopefully one day see some of these in person, whether in, you know, your guys' booth or in other people's collections once they've given these guys new homes.
Yeah, exactly. That's the plan. And so we're going to preserve as much of the information as possible for as long as we can by posting at least the core of this online and on the internet. But I mean, this is how we all learn, right? I just, without seeing a collection like this, I simply can't understand Swiss minerals as well as I'm going to. So it's been fun. All right, let's leave the bathroom and go to the other place of honor.
So
So
briefly, for anyone who really liked the fish wallpaper that we had going on in there, we also redid the women's bathroom and it's malachite. So there you go.
Oh, nice.
happy. So
But no case of honor in the women's bathroom? What's going on?
I was
Rob ran out of time.
I thought about it. I thought about putting Bill Larson's Burma collection in the woman's bathroom showcase. But
That was my idea and he didn't go through with it. So
it takes
sorry,
time.
Bill.
It takes time. So here, let's start
There's
out
still
here.
time. There's still time.
All right, hold on. I have to make the drama happen again. All right.
So we
Put
need
the phone away.
topics. So I'm done showing you these two large collections. And now I'd like to talk to you about something that's coming this summer. These are hopefully surprise announcements. As many of you know, I also run an auction website. We started 20 years ago, actually 23 years ago, technically in partnership with John Vivart when we were both a lot younger. And so mineralauctions.com has been around all that time, but we have not taken it to the next level. With what we're about to preview to you, we will be taking it to the next level. So you'll look at an estate auction and a fundraising auction for the Rice Museum. So let's start with the Rice Museum material on this side. So for those who haven't seen it, this is a fabulous museum of minerals and natural history located in Hillsboro, Oregon. If you ever get a chance to get up to that part of the world, I strongly encourage you to visit the Rice Museum. So during the time of COVID, the decision has been made by the board of directors to take specimens that are not on display, that are simply in storage, and sell them for fundraising. So we are really honored to be able to host their auction.
Jeez.
Now, most of these were acquired in the 1960s to 80s by the founders of the museum. And they're things we don't see on the market. So the label. So here's a whole suite up here. And we're just giving you a preview of some of the auction. It will be over 50 pieces, and this will be April 17th. I mean, look at that. That's from the old Inspiration Mine in Arizona.
Is the 17th the launch date or the close date?
That's a good question. That should be the close date.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it should be up probably for about a week or so before April 17th.
Look at that.
Mm.
Beautiful. So for those who like Mexican rocks big, Peter, we have a wolfenite bigger than your shoe size.
And you're tall, so I think you have big shoes.
Yeah.
Size 13.
And big
Look at
socks.
this. This is a glove mine wolfenite. So all of these, sorry, it's backwards. All of these are going to be up for auction with no reserve to benefit the museum. And if we were at Tucson, you would be looking at these in a glowing showcase right on the show floor. By way of
Yes, you would. We would be happy to provide cases, always provide cases for stuff like this.
Sure. Now, for those who are into lapidary material, the museum has a huge repository of lapidary material. This is chrysoprase from Australia, Bisbee turquoise. So there will probably be a follow-up auction specializing in lapidary materials. This is amazing. This is a ferberite from the 1960s heyday of Panasquera.
Mm.
And remember, all of these are offered at no reserve. Now, to supplement it, some of their dealer friends have donated pieces, of which this is probably one of the most valuable up here. So Stuart Walensky has donated this for the auction. Again, at no reserve and to benefit the museum.
Wow.
And we'll just pano across other things here. 1980s Russian heliodor. Ukraine now, sorry. Old habits, I apologize. We have a tiger wolfenite. Fairly large size. This is interesting. Look at this. Garnet from Honduras. Cabinet piece.
El Mochito.
Yep. One of these weird Mexican minerals that Peter can bid on. I'm sure you need this for your Mexican collection, Peter. You'll feel empty without this. You need it.
It's so sparkly, Peter.
Yeah, well, sparkly is good. Green is good too.
Yep. Okay. So then there's a whole bunch of small, just cute, adorable specimens that everybody can afford. Worldwide azurites.
Look at that Argentinian sword.
Golds. Yep.
Nice.
So I encourage everybody to tune in for this. And if it's successful, there will be a follow-up. And these funds go directly to the museum for renovation and for publicity so that after COVID ends, the museum can reopen with a bang and serve the mineral community and bring in new people. I want to show you a few really special things, although small. That's incredible. These came out in I think the 1890s, if I'm not wrong. So further donations are welcome. You can contact the Rice Museum. Gail Spann is president of the board, and Gail and Jim Spann and Jean Myron have been the leading drive behind organizing this. The board of directors working together pulled these from the museum's collection to offer for auction. I mean, look at this. This is from Globe, Arizona.
Wow.
I've never seen anything like that. You know, what's it worth? I don't know.
It's alligator jaws.
It's
The
not
auction. Yeah.
You need an arm stuck in it.
So that's one auction. Now, following that, in some ways, this is hard to show, but we're going to do this, and we're going to do this for the family of a dear friend. If you were watching earlier, you saw Dominic Allegra speak about the Franklin mining project that he was involved in with his father, Fran Allegra. For those who didn't know him, Fran was an amazing person. He started out as a low-level mineral collector and a low-level lawyer, and eventually rose to federal judge and built an amazing collection. And many of us recall going to Washington, D.C. to visit Fran. And you could sit in his office and look at the collection with one eye, what you're going to see here, whereas with your other eye, you can look at the White House out of his office window. This was the most prominent display collection in the Washington, D.C. area. Fran was a generous host and would share it with anybody. So for the first time in many years, we've assembled these together, and we're going to present these also for an estate auction to benefit Fran's family. And that will be sometime in the end of April or early May.
Smoky Hawk is insane.
Yep, actually there's a picture of this coming out of the ground. So we have a picture of it dirty in the pocket. This was the only piece in the pocket, that particular pocket. So he collected for color and variety, but he had a particular love for Downogorsk, Russia. And so there's some very old Downogorsk pieces here. We don't have time to go into all the stories, but for those dealers among you, you will appreciate that one of the best stories about this piece was how Fran got the edge over Victor Yount. And Victor didn't realize what he had, and Fran got a really good deal. So that was a nice story. This is beautiful. One of the old Kavanzites on the white over here. You know, the new ones just don't have that saturation, and they don't have these bright white stillbites with them. So most of these were acquired in the 90s and the early 2000s. You can see here's Illinois fluorite, completely natural, without going to the laboratory yet, and already has beautiful color and shape.
And the inclusion.
So, yeah, the chalcopyrite inclusions. So remember when you see these. Oh, go ahead, Peter.
Is that an invisible fluorite down on the lower left?
Yes, yes. So this is one of the Downogorsk ice cubes. So this actually was, I can say for sure, this was in 1997 or 98. One of those 2 years, I negotiated this in Russian when my Russian was still conversational with a guy named Vadim in the back hallway of the executive inn. And in the first of many interesting experiences, well, Fran didn't have enough money for this. It was a cash deal. And we called his mother-in-law. So unlike most of us as collectors, Fran had a very supportive mother-in-law who every year asked him, what could she buy him when he went to get his mind in a good place and go have fun and go to Tucson without his family? She'd say, I want you to go. I want you to have a good time. Can I finance a rock for you? This was the most awesome mother-in-law imaginable.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she was great. And so every year, Fran would have his mother-in-law's help on his mineral budget. And he would buy one good rock and one other rock at the Tucson show. That was what Fran did. and then he'd go home with, you know, his 1 or 2 rocks. Keep in mind, these are being auctioned at no reserve. This is a $40,000 to $50,000 rhodochrosite. Can you get the color on that?
They just never, they don't.
Okay. So all of these are now being sold to benefit his family.
Zoom doesn't let you mess with the coloring and lighting the same way that
So Fran is from Cleveland, Ohio, and one of his favorite things was good Ohio fluorites. We have others, but this is one of the best of these clay center fluorites from the 90s. Let's take a look at this top shelf again. And then Brian, I think I'll shut up for a minute. And can you run the slideshow we prepared with pictures of some of these?
All right.
This-
Why don't you start with this?
Yeah, so thanks need to be given to Danny Trinchillo and the team at Fine Minerals International that prepared this background graphic for a tribute case to Fran. And this was presented at the Tucson Main Show 4 years ago when we were both young punks and getting started, and Fran was a young and new collector. We all became close friends, and he treated us both rightly, and so we're trying to do the same now. And this was made with love. Fran was a really good part of our hobby. So what a lot of people may not realize is despite his full-time career as a federal judge, he was appointed by Bill Clinton to the bench and probably would have been a candidate for the Supreme Court at some point if he had survived. Fran was a full-time and then some scout leader, and he was the one educating the scouts on Capitol Hill. He was involved in everything Boy Scout for as long as I could remember, including teaching their geology lessons. So we're just going to do a slideshow here. That's the Afghan tourmaline without repairs or restoration. Lauren, that's the Smoky Hawk piece you liked. Is Ohio fluorite. This is from the Pedernera, circa probably 2006 to 7. The Cabanzite that I personally have a weak spot for. And again, all of these were cabinet pieces. The reason why is, frankly, I couldn't begin to imagine how much reading of boring legal stuff he had to do. And he liked to be able to sit at his desk and look across the room. They had to be big enough to see from across the room. Mm-hmm. So that's this Chinese pyromorphite. That was one of the early ones. Beautiful Italian sulfur. We'll come back and show that in the next case. Early Chinese green fluorite. And I should say that these photos were generated by Fine Minerals International when they went down and packed up the collection for the family.
And that was the roto that we saw that you shared with us on the camera,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And those are fluorites on it?
Oh, this has a story. Do I have
I'm sorry,
time to
Peter
tell?
had a question on this.
Those are little
yeah,
fluorites
those-
all over it?
Those are fluorites all over it. Little beautiful accenting fluorites, yes.
Look like little sugar cubes.
So
Mhm.
I have a few minutes left, right, Brian?
5.
Okay,
Yes,
let's
yes,
pause here.
5 minutes.
I have to tell this story because this is one of my favorite Fran stories. Yeah, when we can show you the piece when it comes back from the laboratory, it's out being cleaned. This piece had never been cleaned. We got it at the mine. So again, Fran is a federal judge, right? So he calls me one day and he says, so I was in the judicial chambers having lunch, and one of the other 12 judges on the district court, this is all cases against the United States, says, well, we were at this location for this case on a Superfund site, and the guy had a room of rocks like yours. And Fran said, what do you mean like mine? And he dragged him up to his chambers, and the other judge pointed out the Chinese pyromorphite that you just looked at, right? So Fran knows, okay, there's a room full of pyromorphite at a Superfund site in Idaho. He calls me, and I called Wayne Thompson and said, who the hell owns this collection? There's a room full of pyromorphite in Idaho. And Wayne said, oh yeah, that's Bob Hopper. That's the mine owner. That's his personal collection. So, we asked Wayne to make the introduction, and Fran and I ended up going there with him pretending not to be a federal judge or an attorney, suing Bob Hopper into bankruptcy to try and take his land and his guns and his mineral rights. And we actually ended up underground with that guy. And when we came out, Fran got this piece out of the collection there. So carried it back with him to DC. And while they were alive, we never told Bob Hopper that Fran was on the court overseeing the Superfund lawsuit against him. That would have been ill-advised. So anyway, it's a beautiful large specimen, about 7 inches. Okay,
Right.
moving on. Old China material. That Illinois fluorite. I don't know how many there are. Maybe I gave you too many. This is from the 2003 stibnite find.
And this is the last one, Rob.
Okay. Oh, this is spectacular. So let's look at the piece itself now. Let's go back to the video here. So this was Ed David's Downagorsk pyrrhotite. So when I purchased the Ed David collection in 2006, I guess, this was Fran's first choice because he loved Downagorsk. And, you know, for the money, you can't get a world-class fluorite for the same price as a world-class pyrrhotite. So this was in Ed David's house, and then it was in the judicial chambers, and now it's here. Beautiful piece. Let's just give a quick look at this case. So we have some old classics, an Elmwood fluorite, wonderful calcite, Old English hematite. And actually there's a whole table of other things here just to do a quick pano. So if you stay tuned at the end of April or early May, we'll be showing you all of these things. There's more Ohio fluorites. That's a Downagorsk pyrite.
Rob, is this the entire collection?
It is. It is. It
And
was
how
not
many
a very
pieces?
large collection.
How many pieces?
I'd have to count. I think it's just under 70.
Okay.
So, you know, Fran, like many of us, chose to limit himself by space. Here, we'll come back to the case. Peter, there's a Mexican rock you can buy.
It's a nice one.
It is a nice one.
Yeah.
This is from one of those early major pockets, and this was handled by Wayne Thompson. I think it's one of the best in the size range. You see the little gemminess on the edge, too.
Yep.
So all of this will be offered at no reserve. And hopefully people will tune in and see this. It's a good chance to get some really good minerals. So I think that's our show today. We're just right about at 1,500 specimens, although some of them were a quick pano.
I think if we count some of the boxes of Spinels, we may be,
Over.
I think we did okay.
So, and with a look at this, and you know, welcome to the future. I wanted to end with this because it's an optimistic note. These mineral auctions I'm doing, the mineral auction done by Sotheby's recently, the auctions going on with Heritage, these are really pushing minerals out in front of a lot of new eyeballs, and a lot of people who have not been serious collectors before, frankly, feel more comfortable buying at auction than from a dealer. I can understand that. So I think coming out of COVID and coming out of these weird years, I think a lot of mineral collectors will be surprised when you go to Tucson in 3 to 5 years and you see a lot of new faces. The internet, the expansion of minerals on the internet, and the expansion of minerals to sell in these kinds of minerals to sell at online auctions, I think will grow the field for all of us. So I feel very optimistic.
Now, Rob, we're kind of out of time, but I did want you to address one thing is transparency of the pricing of the pieces once they sell through the auction. That will be available, correct?
So we leave the prices posted for 60 days, I believe. So
Okay.
that will be available.
Perfect. I think one of the great things of the auctions is that transparency so that we actually let the market determine the value of the specimens that are available for sale.
Yeah, well,
So-
we don't leave the prices permanently posted, but if you look during or after the auction, you will see what they're going for. Monica, did you want to add something?
Buyer's
Hmm?
premium? The fact that we have a buyer's premium.
Oh, that's a good point.
That's, I
You know,
think, what Brian was
think
getting
that's
at.
a good point. You should have said that louder. Brian, we don't have a buyer's premium. So what you bid is what you pay. On the
Great.
auction to benefit the Rice Museum or the auction of the Allegra Estate Minerals, I'm making a small commission, but what you bid is what you pay. There's no 20 or 25% overage.
Well, that's great. That's really important to know. Fantastic. Rob, that's the time that we have for you today. Thank you so much for coming back on the show. And thank you for debuting some of these things right here on What's Hot in Tucson 2021. For your viewers out there, stay put, and we will be right back with our last guest of the program. Mahalo.
Thank you.